This is a video on how to put a crimp on a wire. That is a crimp right there. This is also the same crimp, just turned on its side. This is a crimp cover, and this of course is a piece of wire. First thing that happens is the crimp goes on the wire, like so. Now usually you use fingers to put those on there. I'm trying to keep my fingers out of the way because it changes the focus. Then we put whatever we're going to hook to the wire. For example, in this case, we're going to hook an eye pin to it. This would be the same place which your clasp would hook. It rolls through your clasp or your eye pin and goes back through the crimp. It would be nice if there were other beads that eventually it would go back through those beads as well. Okay, so there it is on the eye pin. Now we pull it all the way to the end. Now we want to leave enough room in here for this to go sideways, back and forth, without binding or being too tight on the end. Then we're going to use our crimping pliers. This is our crimping pliers. It has two jaws in the crimping pliers. One looks a little bit like a Pac-Man. The other one just looks like an oval. Here's the Pac-Man shaped jaw on the rear, and here is the oval on the front. First thing that happens is we place that crimp tube with the wires in it into the second jaw, the one with the little dimple in it. We then look at both sides to make sure the little dimple is not sticking out. Here's a little bit of an example from one side. If it were sticking out of the side, it would look more like that, which is not what we want. We want it to be perfectly in the center on both sides. Make sure we didn't lose our slack there. Come back and we squeeze. Now, if we did that right, it should look like a little flattened round piece with a little dimple in the center of it. Okay. That was the first crimp. The second crimp on the same plier, we're going to go into the front jaw and we're going to put it up on its edge. Hope you can see it up on its edge there. Then we're going to squeeze that, and you can see that it slipped. It's not unusual. So we better put it back in the jaw again and try again. Now, what should have happened is it should have folded it over, and now we should have a nice looking end on it. And we pretty much do. If we're in doubt whether it's round or not, or it's as flat as we can get, you can always put it back in and squeeze it again in the front jaw. I think it looks pretty good. At that point you probably have beads on the wire already, but you might not. If you do have those beads on the wire, you're going to want to take those beads and you're going to want to have them cover that extra piece of wire that was left there. If they will. If they won't, then you just cut them off. With the ideal situation, we'll try to run our beads back up inside the wire, or I'm sorry, the wire back up inside the beads. And that will keep the wire from fraying out. It gives us a little bit of extra strength on the end of the wire. In the event that we were to snag on something, we might have a little bit of galling as opposed to the wire just coming out of the end. It doesn't have to go through. You can always cut it right here at this end on the extra wire if you want to get rid of it. Okay, again, we'll show you how that's done. If we can find the crimp. So we just sit down. There it is. Okay, so The crimp goes on the wire. The wire goes on the clasp. It rolls back through the crimp. On your second one on the wire is where you want to take out any slack that you might have. So we'll just keep pulling this slack up until it disappears here. Keep moving our crimp, otherwise it'll bind up on things. You can see I just kept pulling the slack out till there wasn't anymore. Whoops, there still is. And that fell out of our beads. One of the side problems you have with this kind of thing, especially when you're doing real tight. So what you could do is you could pull that bead, that wire off to the side, and then cut it, and then keep taking up your slack. Now in order to take up that slack, I have to pull that bead back a little bit. Okay. There's the beads all back a little bit. I'm going to put my I'm going to put my crimping pliers in the crimp. Okay, now let's do the other side. So we grasp that crimp again in the back jaw. And make sure it's not poked out to the side. If it were poked out to the side, it would look like that. And when we bend it, we get a bell-shaped bend instead. So we get it right back in the middle. And we give it a good squeeze. Once we squeeze it the one way, we should get a deformed looking piece of metal. We put it up on its edge. We grab it by the front jaw, on its side. If we can see that there again. Make sure it's not sticking out the side. Then we squeeze again. Now we should have a nice folded up look. And there we are. Now on a piece of paper this would look something like this. This is the front jaw. This is the back jaw. The hinge is over here. The bottom jaw comes like this. It has a dimple in it. Both spots. Our first bend takes place by dropping the crimp tube with the two wires in it in this jaw. We squeeze it real tight. It turns around and it shapes this shape then. So after we squeeze, it goes to this shape. Then we take that shape and we set it in this front jaw like this. We squeeze it again. After it comes out of there, it looks more like this. And that's all there is to crimping. Thank you.